Today we aren't building a world. Today we're building one little tiny snippet of a world, and we're spending like a full hour doing that. Enjoy this fun talk about weapons.
Alright, I've started recording. I'm ready.
Hi, people!
Hi. Welcome to World Explorers. This is the podcast where we build up fun and exciting worlds based off of prompts, usually given out to us by Isaac, and also given to us by Isaac today. Also, I'm Casey, and just in case that part slipped under the radar.
Hi, I'm Isaac.
Yay! I don't think I was prepared quite enough to start that, but okay.
Okay, so...
Prompt?
Yes, prompt. I am looking at my list of prompt ideas.
Yeah.
And, so, I had this, random idea for, like, something that might make for, like, a cool kind of, weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of magic system thing. Now, this is just a random idea that popped into my head the other day, which is, you have all these different materials that you can forge blades out of. Like, you got your steel and your iron. If you really wanted to, you could make it out of something like wood, but you've got a lame weapon at that point. Anyway, so I was like, well, what if you could forge stuff out of daylight and moonlight?
Okay.
Like, you take the... like, I just had this image in my head of someone taking the light from the sun, maybe concentrating it through, like, a magnifying glass-like setup or a telescope or something along those lines, and sort of funneling the light into a forge.
So pretty much we can make light physical? In a way?
Kind of. I mean, light's already physical. You're just sort of, like,
Yeah,
concentrating the light.
Okay, so we can make it
something.
denser. Is density the right word we're looking for?
I guess so. I mean, it's light. Light is really weird, because it's the thing that has confused scientists for ages, and the way it moves, and the fact it's a particle, and the fact that it's a wave, and it's okay.
It is everything and it's nothing at all.
If you were to actually forge a blade out of sunlight, you could not stare at it without going blind. I will say that. So we're gonna say, like, it glows,
but moonlight
but
you
not.
could.
Moonlight you could.
Okay.
But
is starlight a thing? Or are they too far away?
They don't put. I don't think they put off enough light.
As I said, it might be too far away.
The thing about the moon is, in our world, it's actually just sunlight reflecting off of the moon.
So it's
But in this world, we can say that the moon is actually emitting its own light.
Okay, so that's where we're going. We have a world where the moon produces its own light that is weaker than the sunlight, or a different type of strength, I guess.
Yeah, and now,
Wait,
again,
okay, idea. So the sun is a really hot light, while the moon's a really cold light.
Okay, so you've essentially got fire blades and ice blades.
Yes, but they're both light-based.
Okay. And now, again, I haven't done a ton of, like, solid world building on this. It's just been, like, a random idea that I thought that we could play with.
Yeah.
Now, something I was thinking about was, like, what would these blades be like in terms of weight? Like, would they be weightless because it's light, or would they actually have some weight to them?
I mean, if you wanna... So the whole idea of, I guess the only way you could... In my head, the only way you could really contain light is if you give it a sort of density, which means that it would have some sort of weight to it, but I don't think it'd be terribly much. Like, maybe, like a feather or something, but it'd have to have a weight, right? Or else you couldn't contain it.
Yeah, I think it would have weight, but it probably wouldn't be the heaviest thing in the world.
No, because it's light.
Yeah.
In both senses of the word.
Now, I have another idea in terms of, like, using light for blades, but I want to save that idea until after we've established what these two different blades can do.
What they can do.
Yeah, because these are obviously magical blades.
Well,
You got
yeah.
your sun blade and you got your moon blade.
Okay,
So
so
what
I
kinds of
guess
blades?
we should start with like one at a time and go through the list.
Sure.
So, what do you want to start with, the moon or the sun?
Uh, sun's too easy. Let's go with moon.
Uh, well, in which case, wouldn't we want to go with the sun because it would be the basis of the moon one since it's the simpler of the two?
Fine.
I'm just using your own logic, that's all. So the sun would be, it'd definitely be heat based. You had the idea of it blinding you if you stared at it too long, which is.
I mean, I don't think that's a great idea because that
Yeah, I
would
was just.
blind. Because like it would be too hard to see anything if you're using it as a weapon.
I mean, okay, so but it's condensed, it's stored, so I don't think it would be blinding the area. It would literally just be if you look at the sword. Because the sun's that way too. If you look to the left of the sun and you have it in like your side view, your eyes don't get damaged. It's only when you look directly at it that you feel your life die and you're like, why am I doing this to myself?
But yeah, even then, it's still hard to see things near the sun, like beside the sun.
Yes, but
Uh,
the whole idea though of this is that it's contained and dense, which makes me think it wouldn't produce light. Like you couldn't use it as a lamp or anything.
yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, maybe it would produce like like a very small amount. Because one thing is, if it's emitting light,
Mm.
the light is leaving the blade.
Yeah,
Meaning, eventually, the blade's basically on a battery, and eventually it's gonna die.
and we don't want that.
Yeah, so either it would have to produce a very minor amount of light so that it lasts a long time,
Or none at all.
or or it
It
uh
uh,
I lost my thought, or it just doesn't produce light at all.
yeah.
Um,
I
but I
maybe.
think,
Hmm?
but now I'm thinking about it, the idea of how giving this magic blade a time limit, it does put some constraints on the magic system, where it's not you have the blade and it is permanently powerful. It's every time you want to go and use one of these blades, you have to forge one, and then you only have so long to use it.
So would that mean that these swords are like lightsabers, where you have to close them in and out to like
I
contain
don't
it?
think that you could close these. I
So
think that
you
eventually it
have
would.
it and you say, I mean, but that doesn't that make selling it hard? So you're in the market and you make this blade and they're like, oh, that's really cool. It's like, yeah, it lasts for like 3 days and then it's done. So I mean, the only time you could sell one of these blades was if you had a person who was in need of it at that very moment. And to be honest, I don't think I want to be in the trade of working with people who happen to be in needs of very dangerous sharp objects in the moment, because that's I don't trust those type of people.
Okay, well, maybe what it is it's more like an on-demand forge. Like, because most of blades, it takes hours and hours and hours, and you gotta sit there forever tempering the metal correctly and hammering it away and then sharpening it and quenching it properly and all of this, and then making the hilt. It takes a long time to make a proper blade.
Yeah.
But if this is made out of daylight, I
Mhm.
imagine the forging process is a lot simpler than working with metal. Well, maybe not simpler, but like easier. It'll have like this different. It'll have like its own kind of forge where with the telescope and everything,
Oh,
where
a
it focuses it
telescope.
into. Yeah, we were talking about earlier, but like a magnifying glass or telescope system where it
Yeah.
like funnels the light into a forge or into like a mold or something.
Yeah, and then out pops a
Um,
weapon.
so yeah, I think like that sort of thing, it would it would be easier to forge, but maybe the process is more complicated and harder to understand.
Okay, but
You need a big
I feel
concoction.
like my problem still stands that it's still an on-demand type thing. So the only people who are again going to be asking it are those who are going out to battle like the next day, or even that day. Like they get the sword and they're off to go fight the wizard. And I don't know. That's such a niche, almost too much of a niche.
Yeah, I think that maybe so maybe these people who are making it, their targeted customers are not your average peasant or your average Joe just walking about looking for a weapon, it would be something more like it would be something more to kings who are trying to arm their knights, saying, "Hey, we're about to go to war or something. We need to arm them." Or maybe it's not very expensive to make these because daylight is like an infinite source
That's
of
true.
material. So maybe it's you buy the hilt once, and then to have it reforged into have the blade reforged into the hilt is very inexpensive, like a very minor cost. It's kind of like when you buy a cup from a certain stand or restaurant or something, and then you go back and you get very cheap refills
Yeah.
after you bought the cup. It would be
Okay,
something
but
like that.
I still want, I like, I'm not opposed to the idea of this needing to be refilled. What I'm opposed to is the idea that we can't, like, close the blade in any way. Because you should be able to, because you don't, you're just, okay, so here's the other thing. You go to the forge, you get your sun sword, you hop on your horse, you're off to war, and you're stuck holding this thing up the entire way there. You finally get there, only for it to realize you have like 2 hours left of it, and then it dies in the middle of battle. And then you die. Because it died in the middle of battle. Like, you see,
Okay, so
can
what
we
about
just
this? Here's
close
an
it or
idea.
something? Yeah.
Here's an idea. What if the way that you turn it off is by sheathing it in a sheath that normally any normal like leather sheath or whatever it would cut through. But what if your sheath was forged from moonlight,
Oh, so
so it is
instead,
impervious to the sunblade?
or even like maybe a moon rock or something, like an asteroid rock, because the whole idea of the moon is that it reflects sunlight. So having maybe moon rock can contain sunlight really easily, so you have like a rock sheath.
Okay, well now you got the question of how do you get the moon rock? It
Um,
floating in the sky.
it's might be a rarer material. You know, asteroids, which
Maybe,
they
but at
thought were
that
moonable.
point you wouldn't really be selling many sun swords uh, because the moon rock would be the sheath for that blade,
Yeah, but
and if
then
you
this
can't
doesn't.
sheath it,
Isn't
and
moon?
it's an extremely dangerous weapon, you probably don't want it all that much
Yeah, but isn't
unless you
moonlight
need
like
it
the
for
same
something.
issue though, in the sense that it eventually evaporates? And you know, if you could say, "Oh, we
Um,
can contain moonlight," in which case every single person reading your world's like, "And yet you can't do sunlight. That's sad."
okay, so maybe moonlight works differently. Like maybe the way that moonlight works is you can condense it. Uh,
Into a
and maybe when
solid.
you end up heating, maybe you heat it up, and it does work more like a metal. Where if you condense it enough and then you cool it, it'll become a solid
Oh,
object, and so it doesn't emit really any light. And it basically you might start forging moon rocks essentially.
okay, so you can turn moonlight into like a solid, but sunlight, no matter how much you do, or maybe you can do it with sunlight, but there's no point because then it loses all of
Yeah,
its
and maybe
properties.
sunlight is sunlight. It's like it'll lose its properties. Maybe it's a lot harder to do that with too because sunlight just has so much more energy.
Yeah.
It's harder to control and forge in that way.
I mean,
But it makes
here's an
more sense
idea
as a
though.
weapon.
Here's an
It
idea
makes more
though.
sense as a weapon. What?
An idea though is like if you do condense the sunlight, and we talked about it maybe being it stores the energy in when you do it in a solid. Can we make sun bombs? Like where we do that and then we throw it and kind of release it from its solid state, and then it's just an explosion of sunlight.
Okay, so you can make like a shell of moonlight and then fill it with sunlight and throw it.
That sounds fun.
So like when it hits the ground, you're basically creating grenades. Like I imagine
Yeah.
it'd be like a burst of flames and stuff. Um,
Or if you don't want to go too crazy, you just put a bit of sunlight in there and you just line some people. Got
yeah,
different levels.
you could really vary how this is used.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think the idea that you can condense moonlight so much that it becomes a solid, but you can't do it with sunlight because sunlight has too much energy
Yeah.
makes sense because
Yeah, it
like
makes more
this
sense.
way moonlight because of its less energy its cutting capacity and heat emission would not be the same,
It wouldn't be
and
worth
so
it.
the sunlight makes sense as a weapon, and the moonlight makes sense as something to sort of be
Contain
more
it?
like an armor. I guess like you could like people would probably be making armor out of this stuff if these weapons were common
Yeah.
because that kind of armor, if it reflects sunlight, uh, like 100% or even like just
Oh, would that
almost,
make the sun swords useless?
if you're fighting somebody with this armor, yeah, unless you hit like between the joints or something,
I would.
which I imagine would be easy to hit because you're working with a very light blade.
So, would that mean though that the moonlight armor isn't that efficient against normal swords? You know, to make people not kind of want to use it as an armor?
Yeah, I think so because maybe the yeah, maybe it's not a very strong armor. It's not a very strong sheath. You wouldn't want to make it for any purpose other than combating sun weapons.
Which means it's
And
probably going to
so,
be used as a shield more than anything else.
yeah. Now, what I think people would end up doing is making layers to shields. Like, could get a really nice, expensive shield where it's like you've got your metal or your wood on one layer, then on another layer, you have behind that, you have your moon shield
Oh
layer.
yeah, so that
And
way.
so this way, it's like if you get through, it's like if you manage to get through with a sun sword, it's now blocked by the moon shield,
So
and if
honestly,
you have
you'd almost need like dual wielding weapons might be very popular. Like a sun weapon and a normal weapon would be a
yeah
popular
maybe,
combat
but here's the
style.
thing about dual wielding weapons against that kind of shield. Uh, if you manage to hit it with like your normal weapon, it's going to be blocked by the normal part of the shield in the front. If you manage to cut through that with the sun weapon, behind that layer you've got your moon shield.
Yeah, which is what I mean is that you start with weapon, the sun weapon that will cut through the normal part of the shield, and then you hack at it with the weapon that'll cut through the moon rock, and you kind of just go back and forth until you get through eventually. It's a bit
Yeah,
more time consuming, but you could do it.
the problem with that is the time. Like in that time that you are hacking at that shield, there's a lot of opportunities for your opponent to strike you.
Yeah,
So in the time that it takes for you to destroy the shield, you're likely already dead.
possibly.
So I think that maybe at that point, I'm not sure how people would combat this. The people might just start using normal weapons because moon shields aren't all that strong to begin with, and so if they hit hard enough with something that'll destroy the normal shield, it'll destroy
The moon shield
the
guaranteed, yeah.
moon these moon fusions shields.
Yeah.
So I imagine like these would exist, uh, but they wouldn't be
The most
they'd be sort of
popular.
expensive. They'd be
Yeah.
mostly used for knights and armies.
Yeah. For the rich, the high elite fighters.
Yeah, and so I think that it's like it's one of those things where it's useful, but it's overkill. Like in most cases, you
It's
won't need
yeah.
it most of the time. It's the reason why, yeah, historically, people weren't walking around with armor or wearing full suit of armor and yeah, a shield and everything everywhere they went because it was inconvenient. They would just carry like a sword on their side, and that was it. Because carrying all of this other massive gear, even though it would make it so that they are almost guaranteed to win a fight, uh, it's
It's an
overkill.
inconvenience.
It's harder to move around in your everyday life, and also it's expensive.
True.
So I think that in this kind of world, it would be a similar situation where most people wouldn't even have all this moon gear because it's expensive and it's overkill. People,
Yeah.
if they had anything, would likely just use a normal set of armor, even if they were using armor. If they were just using a sword, maybe they would carry around a sun sword if they had the money for it. But
Because
uh,
now we're also factoring you need the moon sheath, and we seem to be deciding that condensing moonlight is very time consuming and expensive.
yeah, so if you can't afford it, maybe you would get a sun sword and a moon sheath.
Yeah, because you kind
But
of
that's
need
about
both,
it. If you can't afford it, you would get a normal sword.
which would then be sliced to teeny tiny bits by the sun sword.
Yeah, the sun sword is like you swing at it and it just chops it in half. It's like
Yeah.
the blades from Dragon Prince.
Yeah, but the big drawback is that at any moment it can just be like, oh, I'm done now. And it gets weaker over time instead of
Yeah,
stronger.
maybe every time it strikes an object, that creates like a burst of flame and light, and so it quickly loses a lot of its power every time it strikes something.
You always have to carry a spare sword by the sounds of it for when your your son's
Like,
up.
here's the thing though. I think that by the time the fight is over, uh, your sensor will still have enough energy to like be around. So if you're going into a battlefield, yes, you would carry an extra weapon. But on your person, if you're waiting for just one random person to go and attack you, carrying just a sun sword alone, I think would be enough.
Yeah, okay.
And then once the day is over, just go and get a new one or get this one repaired.
Or reforged
Uh,
or something.
yeah,
This honestly feels a lot like a D&D weapon that you would like in a D&D campaign. I keep thinking about so like a D&D group I have, like one of the people's weapons in the bow. They have all these like crazy cool strings, but it's limited use. So they save it for the right time, use it once, and then they can't use it until they recharge it. So that's kind of what this feels like. Is like a classic D&D weapon.
yeah, I mean, if you're going on an adventure, then yes, you would be very careful about when you use it. Only use it when you need it. But if you're just walking around in your everyday life and somebody were to jump on you, you'd be like, no, I'm immediately drawing this thing and I'm going to win this fight and go get it fixed afterwards.
Yeah,
Now,
don't
on the
mess.
off chance that you are attacked multiple times along the way and your your sword gets destroyed, then yes, you're in trouble. But again, you're looking at what is convenient and practical versus what is
Yeah, you can't plan for everything,
use. Yeah, like again, otherwise you would be walking around in a full suit of armor.
which is inconvenient to say the least.
Yeah, you can't do anything when you're wearing a full suit of armor.
It's hot.
Especially when it's like you're
It's
trying to factor in all the cost of including moon plates on it underneath the steel, and it's extremely heavy, and it's all around a bad idea.
it is. I agree.
And plus, if you're wearing armor, I think it's a lot easier for a group of people to get the jump on you because all they gotta do is like grab your arms from behind you when you're wearing your helmet and you can't see much, and then have his buddies go and attack you.
I mean, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, but if you have no armor and you just got a sword, you can just walk about and you see some people going after you. You can either draw your sun sword or you can run.
Mhm.
Maybe both.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I were to attack somebody and I saw that they had a sun sword, I would back off. Like, that's a fight you're not winning
I mean, it
unless you have your
depends.
own sun sword. In which
No,
case,
or
there's
if you're
still a
really
50-50
skilled.
shot that you're gonna lose.
I think if you're really skilled, like a weapon doesn't make a person. Cause imagine
Yeah.
like a person with a lightsaber throwing that thing around. Like if you're not skilled in that lightsaber, I don't care if you have it. I could probably still beat you. Mostly because I would just dance around you until you cut your own head off because I can tell you're going to.
Yeah. If we were to have lightsabers in real life, so many people would chop their own heads off.
It wouldn't be worth it. Lightsaber, it's not good.
Yeah.
That's why we have
Unless you have
safety on guns
a
and
lot of
stuff.
practice with swords, you're gonna kill yourself. And even if you've had a lot of practice with swords, people cut themselves on swords all the time when they're practicing.
I mean, I have a lot of experience opening boxes with knives. Do I still cut myself constantly? Yes. I pinched my finger on a mirror yesterday. A mirror! I'm capable of hurting myself on anything.
Yeah. So I think point made on that.
Yep.
All right. So something else I was thinking about was we were talking about dual wielding
Mhm.
before. What if you were to be dual wielding a sun sword, and even though it's primarily for armor, you had a moon sword, or maybe not even a moon sword, but a moon dagger? I think would be the better option.
What would be the advantage to
Because
that?
the reason I would say dagger is because one, dual wielding swords takes a lot of practice because they get in the way of each other a lot of time when you're fighting.
No,
and
okay,
two,
but I want to stop you. What would be the purpose of a moon dagger? Because for one, moon material is more expensive than sonic material. We've established this. That
yes,
dagger is extra more expensive. It's also it's not it's weaker technically than like a normal
yes,
knife.
yes, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Okay, so the point of the moon dagger is in case you are going up against somebody else who has a sunblade. Because what this would basically be is like a little parrying dagger. Um, maybe about like even just 6 inches long will do it. Uh, where somebody can come at you with a sun sword, and because it's a shorter blade, it's less costly as a full length blade or a big old shield,
Yeah.
and because it's shorter, it's a little bit harder to break than it was if it was longer. Like if it's a long brittle material, it's more likely to break than it will if it's shorter. That's why we make a lot of pocket knives out of stainless steel. But if you were to make a sword out of stainless steel, it would be a very brittle blade that's likely to break on even just the first strike.
Yeah.
Most of the time, there are exceptions to this where if it's tempered properly, it'll work. But for the most part, we make swords out of carbon steel. Um, so if you were to have this shorter moon blade, I think it would be enough to block a sun blade and maybe even some normal blades if they don't hit it too hard, or maybe it can take a beating before it breaks, so
Yeah.
it's still useful. And then once you are blocking with the moon blade, you can take your weapon, whether it's a sun blade or not, and then strike the opponent.
Okay.
So it would have a purpose even if you don't have a sun blade. If you just have a normal blade and then this moon dagger, you're good to go up against somebody using a normal blade or a sun blade.
Out of curiosity, how flexible would we say like the moon stuff could be?
Maybe it's like sort of soft,
Because
almost.
I
And
was
it's
I
not
was
maybe
thinking
like it's kind of like wood, maybe actually, not so
yeah,
much
because
metal,
I was thinking like
but
a
wood
moon
where
glove
you can
would
put
be
a dent in
nice.
it and it'll eventually break.
Yeah, because like a moon glove to hold your sun sword or to even stop someone else's sun sword with a glove. Like they come at you and you
You
just
mean the
pull up your.
sheath?
Yeah, no, I mean, so a glove. Like you have a glove
Oh,
that's
so like you're
embedded.
wearing it.
Yeah, you wear it embedded with like the
Okay.
moon stuff. So when a sun sword comes at you, you just lift up your hand and say, "Ha, very funny," and then you stab them.
Ah,
So you
I
can
like
grab,
it.
like you can
Uh,
grab a sun. That might be a bit more expensive because you have to weave it very carefully to make sure every spot has it. But at the same time, you can't be too thick or else, yeah.
yeah.
But it would
Um,
be useful. I
it
think
would
even
be
more so than the
extremely
dagger.
useful. Yeah, I
Like
think that. I
if
think.
I had to vote,
Yeah,
I'd go for glove. Plus, it's more
yeah.
stylish.
And you look way cooler when you can just grab somebody's sunblade and then be like, you fool, you've walked into my trap.
I don't know.
Just
I think it's cooler when they grab the sword. They just give you like a cheeky smile and they stab you and they don't even say anything. I think that's peak cool. Like they don't even need to say anything. That other person knows they messed up.
yeah, catching swords is actually already a thing you can do
Mm?
in combat. It's just
Hard.
really dangerous, and
Yeah.
you gotta do it just right. But it can be done.
Yeah.
Uh,
It'd
and
be really
it
easy with a
has been
sun
done.
glove. With a moon glove.
Yeah, but if you have a glove that protects you from this weapon specifically, like you wouldn't have a problem catching it so long as it was again your glove has to be made properly and not have taken any damage through just daily use for to make sure that you're completely covered.
Yeah.
So maybe the way that now now the thing is I'm not sure about it being flexible enough to block or to be worn as a glove because if you're trying to make like a shield out of it.
I mean,
uh,
okay, so it might be like a palm thing. So what you have is like a circlet around your palm. It could become fashionable, you never know. And then you
Ooh,
just have like leather or like metal strap rings. So you kind of wear it around your different fingers, the rings, and then the leather kind of the sun metal straps around your palm. So you have full flexibility still, but there's
yeah,
a small spot where you can like catch it. You
that
have to
could
palm up. You'd have to be trained
yeah.
in it. You'd have to be trained to use the glove.
Maybe
But
you could
it'd
maybe it
be
could be
easier than
something
the
similar
daggers.
to gold where because gold and silver are soft metals you can actually weave that into clothing if you have it thin enough
Mm,
and so it's flexible but I don't know too much about this. I will say, like, I'm not sure if exactly if you can do that with gold, or what extent you can do it without it snapping into clothing,
Oh, you could do a lot
or
with
how.
golds. There is a gold weaving is a thing. I sell rings at the store I go where it is a gold mesh. So it is just like gold thread weaved like crocheted together, and it stretches so it fits any
Okay,
ring
so
size.
what if we were to have something like that, where if you make it thin enough, it can bend and flex,
Yeah, and then it can have the
so
same
you can
problem
form
these
a glove out
yeah,
of it.
it'll have the same problem the gold ring has where if you catch it on anything, it unweaves and breaks really easily. So you have to be careful
Yeah,
with it.
so it's like you got to be careful with the glove, but if you are, it'll be very. Well, what if you had like layers to this glove, like you would the shield?
Yeah.
Like maybe you had this glove concealed within a leather glove,
I mean the
and this
leather
way
glove would
people
just
also
burn.
wouldn't know that
Yeah.
you have a moon glove, and
Also, you
so
look cool. I even like the one gloved look is a cool look. I can't pull it off.
yeah.
I've tried. I won't lie. I've tried to pull it. It just doesn't work. I am a two gloved person or no gloved. Actually, I'm more of a you know this you can have like long sleeves which have like little holes in the sleeves and you put your like thumb through it. I love those. I wear those too often.
I have fingerless gloves.
I don't understand fingerless gloves.
I use them just for LARPing or
Okay.
foam sword fighting,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that my hands don't get hurt.
Okay. I guess there's some use to them. I just don't. I mean, I guess it's the same thing as my sleeves, but that's just because they're technically like fingerless gloves because it's just your fingers showing through, but they're cozy and warm.
I think we're getting slightly off topic.
We're always slightly off topic.
But we went a long time this time without getting off topic.
True. I'm proud of us.
So something else I was thinking about. This is a thing that I was saving from earlier that I had an idea, but I wanted to establish how the moon and sun light
Okay.
worked
I
first,
think we got that
which is
established.
which is maybe people have tried uh, forging these items together in some ways in order to
Ah.
like make blades and weapons and stuff that can counter each other. Like if you could forge a moon slash sun blade, perhaps this could decimate a normal sun blade. And
I don't think it
um,
would.
what?
I don't think it would. Now, an interesting idea is a half and half blade. So you have
Yeah,
the
something I
sun
thought
blade
about
on
was like
one half and one on the and then the moon on the other half. So you could block. I don't know, but what's the point? The
ooh,
sun can hit each other, can't they? The sun blades and be fine.
I think the sun blades can hit it. Maybe the idea is if the sun blade hits the moon side, their sun blade takes damage and a big flare of light and stuff is released, but your blade does not because the sun part of your blade is not getting hit.
Yeah, yeah, that
So
could
the
work.
idea is this is designed to combat other sun blades by having a back end that is moon, so you can block with that, and then the front end is or front side is sun, so you can still attack. And
Yeah, I know, but
so if you're fighting, their
you'd have to
blade
be
gets
so
destroyed first.
skilled. You gotta be so skilled because you gotta flip your blades around according to what you're doing. And dude, in a fight, I can barely keep track of my own hand, and you want me to keep track of which blade is flipped and where the other person's blade is? Now, that is
Yeah,
for
the
the
very
skills.
skilled people will learn to master it and have no problem with it.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, I'm sure that there would be people who would have no problem doing this. However, again, I think this would be one of those very uncommon blades because it's a little bit overkill.
Just a little.
Um,
But it looks
Now,
cool.
something else I was thinking about was what about you could either have this be called it, or you could make something else and call it the Twilight Blade.
Okay.
You could either have the one that we just talked about be the Twilight Blade because it's a fusion between them, or maybe there is a way to actually forge Twilight, where it's between the day and the night. Uh,
Uh,
but perhaps this kind of blade, I don't know what kinds of effects this blade would have, or if people could even forge it, because maybe the moonlight and the sunlight are interfering with each other too much to create
that's what I
a
think would
stable blade.
happen.
What?
Yeah, because that's what I feel like would happen. Would it just be? It wouldn't. It
Yeah,
wouldn't
it's like they
just.
counter. One counters the other, and one is supposed to be extremely light and cut through anything. The other is solid, and they
Yeah.
don't work together. Maybe the few people who have managed to forge these things end up creating this weird mesh of solid with a bunch of like holes in it that are filled with light, and it's basically completely useless in a fight.
Yeah, because the moment one of those swords comes down, it just whoosh, and you're like, well, that was fun while it lasted. Because the advantage of the sun sword is that it like cuts through other blades and things, and you don't have those issues.
Yeah.
But the disadvantage of the moon thing is that those other blades can cut through it really well. Which is another disadvantage of the double-sided sword, is that if they pull out a normal sword and just start hacking away at your moon side, it'll break.
Yeah,
Uh,
but again, they have to be able to hack at the moon side first, because as you're swinging fast, and it might be a little bit difficult for them to strike at the back of your blade, because all you have to do at that point is just keep the sun side facing your opponent, don't strike with the moon side, and I imagine it's going to be kind of hard for them to hit the moon side of your blade without hitting the sun side. At which
yeah.
point, their blade will get destroyed before they get a chance to hit your moon part.
It's too many complicated fighting strategies, and I am not a strategist in that type of way.
Ah.
Never was.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is Twilight Blade. This could be like maybe a purple blade, and I don't know what it would do. Let's say, we're talking about like maybe story potential here. Let's say someone managed to find a way to properly forge a Twilight Blade, and let's give it like a purple, swirling, blue and yellow texture that's like maybe moving a little bit and flowing around the blade because it looks so cool.
Mm.
What would it do?
I think it would absorb sunblades. Like, it would just suck the life out of them. And it would also, like, insta-destroy moonblades. Like, it is the ultimate weapon against sun-bladed moonblades.
Okay,
More
so
so
it's like
than anything
solid
else.
enough that it is able to destroy things like a normal blade would, but it is, or like it's solid enough that it's both solid and cuts through anything.
Kind, yeah.
Basically,
It
so
would
like
have to have the best of
maybe
two
the
worlds.
moon part of it is containing all the sun energy, but it's also able to slice through things. So maybe like would this actually ever go bad or ever?
No, because the moon would constantly be. I feel like you'd have to leave it out in the sunlight. Like, you know, those glow in the dark things where they recommend you put it next to a window so it can charge up on the sunlight. Be one of those. Like every now and then you'd have to sun it, which could be optimal stealing time. So careful of that. But otherwise,
Or you could stick it in a forge.
yeah. Or you
Or
could.
maybe the forge is just too powerful. And it would
I
destroy
think
the
it would
blade.
ruin it. I don't think you should reforge this thing. Like, you got lucky once. You can't get Twilight again. Like, it was a one-time luck thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure like how would we actually get the blades? Would it be luck? Like you just try a million times, put endless money into it until you eventually got one that came out right?
A
Or
gift
is
by
there
the
some
gods.
specific forging method
Gifts
that maybe
by
has
the
been lost to
gods.
time or some random person figured out?
I don't know. I feel like it's a gift from the gods or something.
Yeah, so maybe like in this world we have some god that just sent down a blade of twilight.
Yeah, I
The
feel like this is a
impossible blade.
deity intervening weapon. This is not a made by man weapon.
Okay.
Whether that deity was good or bad, that's for someone else to decide, not us.
Yeah, we have spent the entire World Explorers episode just world building this one little part of a magic system.
Yep. And
Okay, so I want to expand upon it a little bit more, if we have
Okay.
time for that. Do we have time for that?
oh yeah, you have a bit of time. Yep.
Okay.
Not much though.
I want to expand upon it a bit more and look at other ways that moon and sunlight could be used. Because we explored this a little bit
Jewelry!
with like, the sun bombs. Jewelry.
I think it'd be pretty jewelry, especially
For
moon
moons?
rocks.
For the moons? Yeah. For the sun?
Not so much. Okay, I get it.
Seems dangerous.
Well, here's the thing. We talked about that the sun can be dense. It just then becomes useless. So it could be just pretty jewelry.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's like shiny. It's not glowing, but it's shiny.
Yeah, it's just pretty. It's like
You could also
gold.
maybe
It's
have one
pretty.
that glows if it's concealed within a moon.
Well, the moons
necklace casing,
aren't
maybe?
see-through.
What?
But I don't think the moon rock is see-through. Is it?
No, but like maybe it's like no. This would I still think this would be too dangerous to wear.
Yeah, I think just
Like if you
moon
had a little
jewelry
hole
is
in it and stuff.
nice. Like I'd
Yeah,
wear
just
moon
condensed
jewelry.
jewelry. Maybe it would get look kind of like an amber resin almost, uh,
Yes.
but shinier.
Yeah. They'd be pretty. Just some moon and sun
Um,
jewelry, very nice and pretty. Because it's pretty much
all
just
right,
like
what
sunlight with all
else?
the sun punched out of it. What
Maybe
else?
there would be a way to create sort of like a flamethrower where you
Yeah.
store it in not as like a forged material, but more like a fuel inside of a container, and it's trying to force its way out, and then you open it up. This would probably be a moon container
Well, yeah,
where
it'd
you
have to
open
be.
up a little funnel or a little nozzle in it or something, and it starts shooting out flames and sunlight.
That could be a thing. I was
You could
also,
have like medieval flamethrowers.
you know what I was also thinking? Underground farms with like little sun lantern light things to feed the plants.
Can you elaborate on that and explain a
Yeah,
little more?
so we actually have something like that now where we have lights which allow plants to like feed off of it. So in this case, they would also have that, but with like little sunlight things that they make, like the condensed sunlight can then be used to power up farms. I'm not sure how useful that would be in this world that seems to be stuck in like the medieval era more so. So they don't have the space issues we have, but we as a humanities society right now have a space problem where there's just not enough space for some areas are so dense in population they don't have enough place to like grow farms and stuff because people live there. So people are trying to move farms underground, and with their cool new lights that hopefully get cheaper and are developed better, we can still feed crops without them ever having seen sunlight or daylight.
Okay.
I wrote an entire paper of this for
Yeah, I'm
high
not so sure
school,
how
so
useful this would be for medieval times, but maybe in the far distant future, if people are still doing this, uh,
there's
yeah,
a
I could see
plug
that
and you
being used.
can't
And
go
also,
outdoors,
like
you know.
in the far distant future, this is like the greenest source of energy ever.
Yep, that's also true. So,
Like if you're like using this as a heat source and using that heat to gather energy, like forget burning coal. Like
you with the sun.
if you're talking about this much energy condensed within a blade, well, or maybe it also would take too long to forge it. I don't know. How long does it take
I have no clue.
to forge these? Like, did we establish how long it takes?
We
It
established
might
that
be
the moon
easy, but
ones
time
take
consuming.
forever because they're hard, but I
Yeah,
don't
the
think
moon
so.
ones take
But
forever.
sunlight's pretty easy. It depends on how dense you want, like how.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
that
don't think it's
sunlight
that
wouldn't
hard.
take too long. Maybe it's like it would spend like an hour in the forge or something. I don't
The
know.
expensive part about a sunblade isn't the sunblade itself; it's the moon sheath to put it in.
Yeah, the moon sheath
And you
to put
probably
it
also
in,
need
and
a
then the
moon
hilt.
hilt. Yeah, you need a moon rock hilt too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
the
imagine a
moon's
metal
the moon
hilt would
stuff
work.
is the expensive stuff. The sunlight stuff's
Yeah,
cheap. Surprisingly, you'd think it'd be reversed, but not in this world.
yeah, the moon stuff. It's like it's pretty much useless in like combat and stuff. But in terms of utilization for tools and defenses and stuff, it's extremely useful and very much necessary.
Yeah, you in order to use the sun, you need the moon.
Now, what happened now? Just a random. Now, yeah, of course, we haven't done much world building on this. There's a bunch of different fun ways you can take these terms of world building. What if one day the moon stopped working?
I mean, do we want to talk about the effect on oceans? Gravity and that weird thing. The fact that you probably have a moon coming towards you and about to crush you. The sky is sad at night now, sadder than usual. Well, you can't get the moon blades, so the sunlight's useful, but that doesn't matter because you'd be dead without the moon. So
Yeah, that's true. Okay, what if the sun turned red all of a sudden and was for some reason like unstable, and suddenly all sun blades are now unstable,
ow,
and like as you're trying to forge them, they're exploding, and
ow.
they're very easily breakable. Like you swing it at one object, and the
Yeah,
entire thing
move
just
on to
explodes in
we
like fire.
convert backwards back to normal steel swords. They were easier to begin with.
Yeah, now sun blades are becoming harder to find because they have to stay sheathed at all times, and people are usually going to using them. They become expensive, and now you've got the story of like where you're trying to figure out why is the sun doing this, and then you can do a whole bunch of other world building sprouting from that a little bit.
Yeah.
Why is the sun acting up?
Yeah. Better than why
Or
is the
if you
moon
want,
gone
you
now?
could just include this as a little magic system in the rest of your whatever world. Like,
It does seem like a little detail for a bigger world
yeah,
picture.
I think that you could fit this into like just about any fantasy world that you really
Yeah,
wanted.
see, we're
Uh,
just making a fun element that can be used. Honestly, though, if you want to use it in the D&D campaign, even go ahead, get yourself a sun sword with a moon sheath. Or else it doesn't work. They need
yeah,
each
I
other.
like this little
Yeah,
weapon.
yeah,
Like we came up with so many different ways that it would be utilized.
yeah. And
Mostly like in terms of combat.
also, I think this was like a nice episode to show like world building isn't always just big grand worlds. Sometimes it's just a little element that can be used in multiple worlds. And today it was a little element that would make a big impact. And also shows that even making little details in your world can take up to an hour. So prepare yourself. World building
Yeah,
takes time.
and imagine like just this is the sort of thing where if this were like in a movie or something, it's the kind of thing that could become an iconic weapon,
Yeah.
or maybe not necessarily an iconic weapon, but an iconic duo of materials to make a weapon thing with the moon sword, like Sunblade. Not super iconic because that's been done a million times. Uh, Moon Sheath, definitely not uncommon. They're definitely not common, but not super cool. Combine them and the way that they work together, suddenly you have something unique and interesting that hasn't been done before.
Yep.
At least I hope this hasn't been done before.
It
Because
probably
otherwise,
has, and we just haven't
otherwise
had.
that was like an hour of time doing nothing.
I mean, I
I'm
wouldn't say
highly
nothing.
doubtful anyone's done this before. I've never heard of
Look, my
this
thought is,
concept.
even if people have done things, what we're doing here is showing how ideas are come up with and developed and like bounced off of each other. So even if this thing existed somewhere else, we weren't aware of that. We're still coming up with this ourselves, and we're still showing the process of how we come up with it, which is the purpose of the podcast. So we're not wasting time, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, fair
I'm making
enough.
you feel better. Is it working?
I feel much better now.
Okay, that's good, because we're going to end on a high note then. Cause,
Yay!
because that's it. That's all the time we have. We spent an hour building a sword. If you stuck around
And
for
no
that.
armor and jewelry.
Yeah, but pretty much we spent an hour building a sword, and if you stuck around for that full hour, or less than an hour, it's not a full hour, we don't do full hours anymore, but if you stuck around for that, we appreciate you. Consider subscribing if you're on the YouTube channel, or following, I think is what you do on the podcast. I don't listen to podcasts outside of YouTube, so I don't know. But do whatever it is you do on whatever the listening service is that you do. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another fun world exploring. What? Yeah.
We didn't even mention like what would happen if you tried to forge this into anything other than a sword, like a sun flail.
Look, we don't have time. We're out of time. We're out of time. We're leaving. We're saying goodbye. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
You know, I was trying to.
Sunny day, forging the moon shields. They don't glow very much, and so they're quite ugly. Oh, sunny sword.
Okay.